I knew something was wrong the second her parents smiled too wide at me. It was the kind of smile you wear when you're pretending, tight, controlled, like it might crack if you breathe too hard. My name's Ethan Cooper. I'm 35, work in architectural design, born and raised in the same blue-collar neighborhood my mother Margaret grew up in. She passed away 4 years ago. Cancer. Quick, cruel. She was the kind of woman who helped anyone and never asked for anything back. Natalie and I had been together for 6 years. I thought she understood who my mother was to me. I thought she respected her. We got engaged last fall under the maple tree in my backyard, the one Mom planted when I was 10. Natalie cried when I proposed, said she'd never felt more loved. For a while I believed her. Planning the wedding should have been the happiest time of our lives. Instead, it slowly turned into something else, something cold, performative. Her parents, Bruce and Karen, made it clear they were footing the bill for the real parts of the wedding. Natalie said she wanted a classy event. That's what she called it. Classy. They started hinting at guest list balance, asking how many small-town folks would be attending from my side. They made jokes about serving comfort food at the rehearsal, like it was some poor people novelty. When I showed Natalie a photo of my mother on our mantel, her smile faltered. "She's always in your stories," she said, like it was a problem. "I know she meant a lot to you, but don't you think it's time we build new traditions?" I brushed it off. It was just nerves, right? Weddings stress people out. But it wasn't just nerves. And I'd learned that the hard way, because as the wedding drew closer, the woman I thought I knew started to show someone else underneath. And I wasn't ready for how cruel that person could be, especially when it came to the woman who gave up everything to make sure Natalie's family had something to survive on. It started small, little offhand comments Natalie would make when I brought up my mom. "She was a little too involved, don't you think?" she'd say while tasting cake samples. Like, "It's sweet, but maybe she had a hard time letting go?" I didn't snap. I didn't argue. I just nodded and changed the subject. Back in 2013, when Bruce and Karen's family restaurant was 2 weeks from foreclosure, my mother cut them a check. No questions, no paperwork, no interest. Just a handwritten note that read, "You've always fed the neighborhood. Now let someone feed you." They never paid her back. Not once. 2 years later, when Natalie's brother failed out of his first college and wanted to try again out of state, guess who quietly helped cover the cost? My mom. Again. Said it wasn't a loan. Said, when you've got a little more than someone else, you share it. That's all. But now, Bruce strutted around like a self-made success story, puffing his chest at every wine tasting and venue visit. Karen turned her nose up at anything that wasn't elegant or refined. One night, I caught her making fun of the photo of my mom in our hallway. She was whispering to Natalie, "Does he really need that shrine in the middle of the house?" She laughed, like it was funny. That stung. But still, I said nothing. I wanted to believe it wasn't what it looked like. I told myself people say dumb things. They don't know what they're doing. I let it go. Then came the florist meeting. Karen flipped through the book and stopped at a bouquet of white carnations. My mom's favorite. I suggested them. Karen made a face. "Oh no, those look like sympathy flowers. Very a funeral. Why? Not the vibe we want." Natalie said nothing. Didn't even look at me. It was like Margaret Cooper had become an inconvenience to them. A ghost they wanted to edit out of the story. But I wasn't about to let them. I just didn't know yet how far they were willing to go. The rehearsal dinner was held at a high-end golf club an hour outside the city. Bruce's idea, of course. "A little elegance goes a long way," he'd said when we toured the place. I didn't argue. I was tired of arguing. But the second I stepped into that room, I felt it in my chest. The tension, the judgment, the way the servers were clearly instructed to favor Bruce's side of the guest list. The way my Aunt Martha got seated behind a damn pillar while Karen's second cousins were front and center like royalty. Pushed it all down. For Natalie, she didn't say much to me, just kept bouncing between tables, laughing at inside jokes I wasn't part of anymore. Then came the speeches. Karen went first. "Thank you all for coming," she said, raising her glass. This day is really about family, tradition, knowing where you come from and where you're going. She looked directly at me as she said it. Some families are more involved than others, she added, chuckling. Some mothers, well, they have a hard time letting go. God rest her soul. Laughter. Real laughter. Bruce followed, holding a whiskey like he was auditioning for a country club board. I'll say this about Ethan, he said. He's a good man. Hardworking. Came from humble beginnings, very humble. More laughter. But he's marrying up and we're happy to welcome him into a family that knows how to do things right. That was it. But the worst part wasn't the jabs. It wasn't even Bruce's smug grin or Karen's fake sincerity. It was Natalie, sitting beside me, laughing. I felt my chest tighten. My mother, who gave everything she had to that family, was being mocked in death, turned into a punchline. And the woman I planned to marry laughed along. I didn't plan it. Didn't think it through. I just rose from my seat and picked up my glass. Bruce. Karen, I said, voice steady. I don't think you remember how much you owe to the woman you just mocked. The room fell dead quiet. I could feel the heat behind my eyes. And I was only just getting started. I was raised by a woman who taught me that kindness wasn't a virtue, it was a responsibility, I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a blade. That woman, Margaret Cooper, paid your mortgage when the bank was about to seize your restaurant. She helped your son go back to school when no one else would co-sign his second chance. She never told anyone. She never asked for anything in return. All eyes were on me now. Some shocked. Some confused. A few looked down at their plates, ashamed. But tonight, I continued, you dishonored her. Not by forgetting. By remembering just enough to mock her. Karen's wine glass froze midair. Bruce blinked, caught between a smirk and a scowl. I turned to Natalie. And you, my voice cracked, but I didn't let it break. You laughed. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man standing beside her. Ethan, can we not do this here? She whispered. No, I said louder. This is exactly where it needs to happen. I set my glass down slowly. I lost my mother 4 years ago. She died without ever asking for recognition for what she did for the people in this room. And now I sit here watching you all pretend like her generosity was some kind of flaw. Like being involved and caring too much was uncomfortable for you. Bruce stood up, probably to save face. All right, that's enough. No, I cut in. You don't get to dictate what's enough. Not when you've spent the entire night polishing your egos with the memory of someone better than all of you combined. Natalie touched my arm, a soft, performative gesture. Can we just talk in private? I looked down at her hand. It felt foreign. You knew they felt this way, I said. You never defended her. You let them say those things, make those comments, and you never once stood up for her or for me. Her expression twisted. Defensive. Ethan, this is my family. What do you expect me to do? Fight every battle? No, I said, stepping back. Just one. Just the one that mattered. I walked toward the exit. Karen calling my name. Bruce saying something about apologies later. I opened the door. Stepped outside into the night air. But as I reached the parking lot, a calm washed over me. And then I stopped. Turned around. Because I wasn't done. Not yet. I don't know what made me turn back. I walked back into that room, past the shocked faces and the frozen forks mid-bite. I didn't hesitate. I stepped to the front where the DJ had just queued up some cheesy instrumental background music. I tapped the mic once and it let out a pop that echoed through the hall. The room fell silent again. Sorry, I said. Just one more thing before we wrap up tonight. Natalie was still seated, stiff and flushed. Her eyes pleaded. But she didn't speak. I want to thank you all for coming, I began steady. But there's been a change of plans. Bruce stood up fast. Ethan, if you're thinking of. Sit down, Bruce, I said calmly. I've given enough of myself to people who think kindness is weakness. I won't do it anymore. Then I turned to Natalie. I loved you, I said, and I meant every word. For 6 years I believed in us. Believed that the woman I met at that charity build site, the one who hammered floorboards and laughed at my paint-stained jeans, was real. But lately I've realized something. The woman I fell in love with is gone. Or maybe she was never there. I can't marry someone who lets her parents insult the woman who raised me without saying a word. I can't build a life with a partner who thinks loyalty only applies when it's convenient. Karen's voice rang out from the back. This is a mistake. Don't throw your life away over. Over what? I said sharply. Respect? Integrity? My mother gave you everything when you had nothing, and now you mock her because she doesn't fit your new image. I took off the ring. Held it up. This was supposed to symbolize forever. But forever has to be built on respect. And this. I set it on the edge of the champagne fountain. This isn't love. It's a transaction. And I'm done paying the price. Then I turned around and walked out. For real this time. And as I stepped into the cool night air, I swear I could feel my mother's presence in the wind. Like she was proud of me. It took 2 days before Natalie showed up at my place. I'd been staying at a buddy's guest house, sorting through the emotional wreckage, trying to process what the hell had just happened. I hadn't told anyone the full story. Not yet. It was too raw. Too humiliating. But then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, she knocked. She was crying, of course she was crying. Makeup smeared, hair pulled into a knot like she'd finally cracked under the pressure of appearances. "Ethan, please," she whispered, voice shaking. "Can we talk?" I didn't say anything. Just stepped aside and let her in. Her voice jumped from regret to defense to nostalgia, like she was testing every angle to see which one might make me fold. "I didn't laugh at your mother," she said, wiping her face. "You did," I replied. "You didn't stand up. You didn't even flinch." Her hands trembled. "I was nervous, okay? It was my parents and they—" "No," I cut her off. "This wasn't new. They've been doing it for months. You just laughed louder this time." She sat on the edge of the couch, shaking her head. "You blindsided me. At the dinner. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. And your parents embarrassed me in front of my mother's memory," I said coldly. "Only one of us had reason to be ashamed." She went quiet after that. Then, like it was a peace offering, she pulled out a box from her purse. It was small, black velvet. I didn't recognize it at first. But when I opened it, my stomach twisted. It was my mother's locket. The one passed down from her grandmother. The one I'd kept in my drawer, tucked beneath a note she'd written me before she died. "What is this?" I asked, my voice low and dangerous. Natalie bit her lip. I wanted to wear something of hers for the ceremony. To feel close to her. That's all." I stared at her. "You took this from my house," I said. "I didn't take it," she said quickly. "I borrowed it. I meant to tell you. Did you think I wouldn't notice it was gone?" She looked up, eyes wet. "I just wanted to feel like part of your past." "No," I said, standing. "You wanted to control it. You wanted to own it, just like your family tried to own this wedding." I reached out and took the box from her hands. She didn't resist. She started crying again. But I didn't comfort her. I just opened the door. And waited. She didn't move at first. Just sat there, lips trembling, looking at me like I'd lost my mind. Like she was the victim. "Ethan," she said, almost a whisper. "You're really doing this? After everything we've been through?" I nodded toward the open door. "I'm not doing anything to you, Natalie. I'm finally doing something for me." She stood up slowly, her hands out like she wanted to touch me. I stepped back. "Please, we can fix this," she said, desperate now. "You overreacted at the rehearsal dinner. My parents were just being themselves. They didn't mean anything by it." I laughed, quiet, bitter. "That's the problem. They meant every word. They just thought they could dress it up as humor and hide behind champagne." "And you?" I asked. "What's your excuse?" Her face hardened a little then. The real her starting to crack through. "You always make everything about your mom. Like no one else's feelings matter." I blinked. That hit me like a punch. "No one else's feelings?" I said. "She's been dead for 4 years. All I ever asked was for a little respect for the woman who made sure you and your family didn't drown." "She didn't do it for me," Natalie muttered. There it was. The truth, plain and ugly. Natalie looked at the ground. The silence between us stretched long and thin. "Is this really it?" she finally asked. "You're walking away? No second chance? No talking through it?" "This wasn't a mistake," I said, voice steady. "It was a reveal. You showed me who you really are when it matters." "That laugh? That silence? That was the most honest you've ever been with me. I hope one day you understand what you lost. And I hope when you do, you hear my mother's name in your head, because she's the reason I know I deserve better than this." Then I closed the door behind her. Locked it. And for the first time in months, I breathed. The next morning, I found her key on my porch. No note. No text. Just the silver copy I'd made for her 6 years ago lying flat on the welcome mat like a quiet surrender. I should have felt something, sadness, maybe. Relief. But all I felt was stillness. I slid the key into a drawer next to the locket. I couldn't bring myself to look at it again, not yet. No more texts. No calls. But the ripple had started. Friends began reaching out one by one like they were circling the wreckage to see who survived. "You okay?" my cousin Sam asked over coffee. "Yeah," I said. "Actually, I think I am." But I wasn't quite prepared for what came next. Because Natalie's version of the story? It spread fast. According to her, I blew up the wedding over one joke, that I wasn't emotionally ready, that I used my mother as a shield to avoid commitment. Classic. paint the man as unstable and sensitive, make herself the misunderstood bride. But people who really knew me started pushing back. One of Natalie's bridesmaids, Clara, called me late one night. "I don't know what happened," she said, "but I've heard Karen say worse things than what she said at the dinner." That wasn't a joke. It was venom. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The truth has its own way of crawling to the surface. A week passed. Then two. And just when I thought the storm had settled, I got a message from my cousin Annie. She'd picked up the box of wedding supplies Natalie's mom had graciously left behind. "Thought you should know," the message read. "Your mom's memorial candle? They didn't pack it. I found it in a trash bag behind the venue." My heart stopped. That candle had her name etched in gold. I'd made it myself. Meant to burn quietly at the ceremony near the altar. A symbol. A tribute. Thrown away like garbage. I held the phone in my hand, shaking. That wasn't a mistake. That was intentional. And that changed everything. Because now I wasn't just walking away. Now I wanted justice. That candle in the trash? That was my line. I was done grieving. Now I was planning. I called Clara, the bridesmaid who'd quietly reached out, and asked her a direct question. "Did you see Natalie with the locket before the rehearsal dinner?" There was a pause. Then, yes. She showed it to me. Said it made her feel powerful. That word stuck with me. Powerful. My mother's locket, a generational heirloom passed down from stronger women than Natalie would ever be, used like a prop in some twisted power game. So I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I got dressed. Put on a suit. And showed up uninvited to Bruce and Karen's restaurant. Lunchtime. Packed house. I waited until they were both near the front, entertaining some investors. Then I walked up, calm as stone, holding a manila envelope in one hand. Bruce froze. Karen tried to smile. "I'm just here to return something," I said. I pulled out a photo. My mom from 2013, standing in their restaurant kitchen, arm around Karen, both smiling like old friends. On the back, in Margaret's handwriting, "Glad I could help. You've got something worth saving." Karen's face drained. "You threw her candle in the trash," I said loud enough for half the room to hear. "You mocked her name. You called helping people interference. But without her, you wouldn't own this place. You'd be a footnote." "Ethan," Bruce started, "let's not." "No," I cut him off. "You don't get to control the narrative anymore." Then I pulled out a second envelope. "This is a certified letter to the press. A full recounting of what your family did, including scanned copies of financial help my mother gave you. If I hear even one more lie, one more twisted story about why the wedding ended, this goes public." Bruce looked like he'd swallowed his tongue. Karen opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "I don't need revenge," I said. "I just want peace. But if you ever drag her name through the dirt again, I'll make sure everyone knows the truth." I turned and walked out. And for the first time since that awful dinner, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Powerful. Not in the way Natalie meant, not through control or manipulation, but through clarity. The truth was mine, and they would never steal it again. 3 days later, Natalie showed up again. Not at my door. Not in person. She sent a message. A voice note. "Ethan, I've been thinking about everything. I miss you. I miss what we were. My parents can be difficult, but I didn't mean to hurt you. I wish things could go back." I listened to it once. Then I deleted it. Because by then, the story had already shifted publicly. Bruce and Karen's restaurant started bleeding regulars. Clara, bless her, had told a few people the truth, how Margaret Cooper helped them when no bank would. How Natalie's family rewrote that story as if they built everything themselves. The community remembered. The whispers turned into posts. Posts turned into shares. I wasn't sitting at home licking wounds anymore. I was back on project sites. Building again. Designing again. Living again. Then came the moment I'd waited for. An email from a woman I didn't recognize, Cheryl Lancaster, editor-in-chief of a regional architecture magazine. "We heard about how you canceled your wedding," she wrote. "We also heard why. We think the story of integrity, and how legacy can't be bought, is something our readers need to hear. Would you be open to an interview?" I said yes. In that article, I didn't name names. I didn't need to. I told the truth about Margaret. About how her spirit shaped the man I am. About how people try to bury goodness when it makes them feel small. The piece went viral. Natalie's silence became permanent after that. I never heard from her again. But that was fine. Because as I sat in my quiet home one evening, the locket now restored to its place above the fireplace, a candle burning gently beneath it, I realized something. They didn't just lose me. They lost the one thing they could never fake. Character.